are these people?
From a friend of the show, Arturo Dominguez over at Decolonized Journalism. I'm a paid subscriber to this publication. I'm a fan of Arturo's. He's been sharing out the show. Really appreciate him doing that. We help each other, and independent media has got to support each other. And this is my heading about that we are all Antifa. The White House is going full bore targeting the mythical Antifa. Many previously arrested while protesting ICE raids are already being labeled now as members of the non-existent organization Antifa, because Antifa doesn't exist as an organization. In a recent report at the New Republic, which is a shitlib publication of record, Greg Sargent asked Steve Bannon if he thought Trump would use the Dallas shooting at an ICE facility as a pretext to target people speaking out against the federal agency. Bannon responded with, "Absolutely." Minutes after reading Sargent's report, Bannon would be proven right, as the DHS issued a press release titled, DHS is fighting back, America against Antifa violence. This article highlights the dangers that people like me face when exposing propaganda and investigating federal agencies such as ICE and people in the administration. Arturo could use your support now more than ever, and there's a link there to get 30% off forever. The press release starts not just targeting the mythical group, but Antifa-aligned left-wing violent extremists, broadening the scope of their targeting to anyone who isn't silent about the atrocities being live-streamed online. Meaning us, me. The language is so broad that everyone, including conservatives who speak out against the genocide in Gaza, can be labeled as Antifa-aligned in the future. That's their plan. Even speaking up against anything white nationalist Republican leaders say or do can be labeled as such at any given time. Welcome to 1984. Antifa-aligned domestic terrorists have nowhere to hide. DHS is upholding the rule of law, reads the first sentence in the press release. The Department of Homeland Security has arrested dozens of Antifa-aligned left-wing violent extremists who've attacked law enforcement, murdered innocent civilians, and launched a wave of violent riots throughout the United States. Really? Who are they? It took little time for the administration to label the mass shooting at the Dallas ICE facility as an Antifa-aligned attack, as noted by various statements from the White House and echoed by DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin, formerly of Fox News, in the latest press release. Despite all evidence pointing to the shooter being a misanthropic nihilist, the White House is moving quickly before truth becomes a more well-known fact in the news media and online. McLaughlin took it a step further in her statement by attempting to associate migrants with Antifa. Antifa and other left-wing extremists, okay, I can't even read their statement. It's nonsense. All right. She says if you lay a hand on our federal law enforcement officers, you'll be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and then used for slave labor. But Antifa and their friends haven't stopped us. Of course not. You guys have the full backing of the state and you're armed to the teeth with military equipment. They're not even slowing us down, despite the 1,000% increase in assaults against them. Why would that be? Our brave men and women in federal law enforcement are still on the ground. I wish they were on the ground, but they're standing still, fighting every single day to uphold the rule of law. No, they're not, and that's not their fucking job. And keep Americans safe from violent extremists and criminal aliens alike. That's not DHS's job. It should be noted that many of the cases of alleged assault proved to be incidental contact in crowded environments, leading to many of those charges being dropped. But why waste a good propaganda? The statement continued to try to associate the Dallas attack with leftist violence, continuing the propaganda from the White House, equating benign language with violence and ignoring the violent language that's become so prominent in right-wing circles. What statements like this signify is how far the admin is willing to go to manipulate narratives and create culture wars to distract from its failures and its Christian white nationalist takeover of the government, led by Pete Hegseth and the Department of War. All right. The press release highlights a handful of previous arrests related to attacks on ICE facilities this year and equates them with Antifa. However, at the time of their arrests, none were labeled as such and were instead equated with MS-13 and Tren de Aragua gang members, right? The people who opened fire at an ICE facility were not labeled as Antifa at the time, and neither was the man who claimed to have a bomb while trying to enter an ICE facility, nor was the man who allegedly tried to run over an agent with his car, but they were all accused of being Antifa. DHS even went so far as to list lawmakers exercising their oversight authority at Delaney Hall in Newark as Antifa-aligned domestic extremism. We covered that. What's his name? The mayor of Newark tried to get in, but also the elected Congress people that had authority to visit and to inspect the facility at random. Right. The press release continues to claim that ICE agents were assaulted by the lawmakers, a claim not corroborated by video evidence seen across social media that we played here. The press release then goes on to label arrests during the isolated protests in LA as riots and the alleged assaults on on agents, most of which didn't hold up in court, as Antifa related. These big fucking snowflake crybabies. They're taking every minor thing that's happened since Trump's Gestapo-like tactics have been implemented and labeling them just as they did to justify disappearing migrants in the early days of their implementation, equating them with gangs and cartels. And in doing so, they're shifting the conversation away from targeting Latinos with violent actions. Right? None of the cases cited by DHS has previously been linked to any gang activity or has been shown to have any links to any groups. Now, since Trump signed the executive order targeting Antifa, we've watched the White House switch up the false accusations. From labeling protesters as protecting gang members, which is bullshit, to making their dissent appear as an Antifa-related straw man. This targeting is no different than labeling people who speak up against the genocide of Palestinians as Hamas supporters to drown out concerns about the slaughter of innocents. Trump's executive order is also quite broad and employs the decades-old strategy of accusing protesters and so-called quote-unquote leftist groups of doing precisely what hate groups do. It's projection. The difference here is that we have more than a century of evidence showing far-right neo-Nazi groups and the Ku Klux Klan employing this strategy and no evidence of the mythical Antifa doing so. Again, the executive order says, quote, this is insane rhetoric. This is right, by the way, out of Project 2025 language. Antifa recruits, trains, and radicalizes young Americans. Really? Where are they recruiting them and how? And to what organization? And where are they organizing? To engage in this violence and suppression of political activity, then employs elaborate means and mechanisms to shield the identities of its operatives. Balaclavas. Yes, elaborate means. Conceal its funding sources because they don't have any. And operations in an effort to frustrate law enforcement and recruit additional members. Who is recruiting on behalf of Antifa? How do you get the job of Antifa recruiter? Is that something I can apply for somewhere? Individuals associated with and acting on behalf of Antifa further coordinate with other individuals and entities for the purpose of spreading, fomenting, and advancing political violence and suppressing lawful political speech. No, you're suppressing lawful political speech. Literally, protesting nonviolently is lawful political speech. 1984 shit. This organized effort, designed to achieve policy objectives by coercion and intimidation, is domestic terrorism. Well, at least you admit what you're doing. Yes, but I think you're projecting again and accusing somebody else of that which you are guilty. While conservatives and the far right and the Democrats celebrate this likely illegal order, no legal mechanism for Trump to designate any domestic group as a terrorist organization, its broad warning can and likely will be weaponized against them. Any questions about how it will inevitably impact the political right should be directed at the presidential memo issued on Thursday, which highlights the extent of Trump's attack on free speech and the right to protest, equating them with terrorism. Protesting is now terrorism. The White House's justification, unsurprisingly, only highlights attacks on Trump, Big Head Chuck, the rapist in the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, and the Dallas ICE facility, which again was a libertarian misanthrope, a lone wolf, which was likely MK Ultra, allegedly, as is noted in the memo. It doesn't mention any of the attacks on others who don't fit their narrative. It also glosses over the attackers' motivations because they don't align and portrays each one as a leftist attack, while ignoring the prevalence of far-right attackers and the school shooting that occurred the same day as Kirk's murder by an avowed neo-Nazi. Yeah, that happened. That happened in Colorado. In addition to broad categorizations and highlighting things that never happened, such as riots that left many people dead, the White House is authorizing federal agents to investigate individuals engaged in political violence, quote unquote. If you've been paying attention, the administration has been labeling benign speech that challenges its actions as hateful rhetoric. According to DHS, anything criticizing federal agents, the Trump administration, or his supporters is quote unquote hateful rhetoric. Like I said, we're all Antifa. DHS highlighted no hate speech in its press release last week. You know, I didn't get my paycheck from Antifa headquarters this week. Who do I call? Is there somebody at Antifa HQ? Is there somebody in Antifa HR for me to call? The targeting of speech, whether you agree with that person's views or not, should concern everyone in the United States. What the Trump admin is attempting to do is an escalation that on the attack of freedom of expression not seen in decades, if not longer. Yes and no. I think the Biden administration was doing just the same, if not worse, in a lot of cases. I agree to disagree with him on that one. Again, while both political sides can be blamed for these attacks, which we can, this is the slippery slope we warned about, and it behooves everyone to speak up and fight back. They can't silence us all. Yes, Kurt, Big Brother is calling. All right. Again, Decolonized Journalism, Arturo Dominguez at Extreme Arturo on Twitter. He'll probably be arrested just for his handle saying extreme. Okay. And like Jesse Jett's album, everybody who disagrees with you is an extremist. Remember that he wrote that based upon Karine Jean-Pierre. So this is nothing new. This isn't a continuation and an escalation. And it's gross. And I again, continuing to stand up against it is all we can do. I'm worried that they're going to start arresting us all. And we're all going to need legal representation. I hope we know some good lawyers. I don't know if there are very many lawyers out here on the left because, you know, people with money tend to not like what we do. But, you know, we're going to need some help because there's a lot of illegality happening here. There's a lot of injustice happening here. And there's a lot of people that are left kind of exposed and suffering. And it's going to get a whole lot worse. I still feel like we're in the beginning of this whole thing. All right. Remember, this is year 1 of the Trump administration this time. We still got 3 more years of this shit. It's frightening. And again, as Monarch correctly points out, Trump is distracting again from anyone talking about the Epstein files. Yes, I mean, I think we know what's in the Epstein files and who's in the Epstein files. And yes, child trafficking and criminal financial crimes and transhumanism. And we already know all the names. I mean, we do. Those names have been out for years. So what are we looking for here? And the testimony of the women who are literally suing the federal government because the government has now acknowledged that Epstein was definitely a trafficker and they dragged their feet on punishing him. Go to our merch store, and our merch store has a bunch of killer items like INN t-shirts, beanies, the Indy with the red tie. Again, I got to get the green tie Indy. I know a lot of people like the green tie, so I got to get a green tie t-shirt going. But yeah, pick up a t-shirt, rock the INN, and tell people about INN that way. The best people are hanging out here. So if you're able to, before we head out, support independent media, support these people. These people already did. Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. You got paypal.me/Indie News Network, and do that as friends and family so we don't get hit with a fee. Again, at indienewsnow.com, which I just showed you. And then you can subscribe monthly or annually over at Substack at innnewsletter.com or at indiemediatoday.com. I enjoy doing the show every Sunday night. I love you. I love you all, and I appreciate you all for putting up with me. And man, that was a long, ranting, depressing fuck Israel segment. I apologize. Lord, I apologize. But this is what's happening in the world, and we can't ignore it. There are too many outlets that just want to bury their head in the sand or only tell one part of the story. And we're not going to do that. I'm going to try to go to as many places as I can, bring as many trusted independent journalists, outlets, and opinions and perspective as we can. And we're going to keep doing this. So, all right. I don't have any of his goodbye, although I do have this. No, we just fucking lost the stream. Night, everyone. Love you.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say?